right, welcome everybody to the regularly stated meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission. This is the commission meeting for Thursday, October 5th, 2023. This is to formally advise that as required by general laws, chapter 38, sections 18 through 25, and pursuant to chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16th, 2021, as extended by chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. The Yarmouth Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting at the date and time noticed above. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. We are going to go right into the meeting, but before I open the first item, I do want to just make a quick announcement. It's like we are currently looking for volunteers who would like to serve on Conservation Commission, so if you feel that you would be well suited to that, please come into the, or you don't even have to do it now, you can do it online, right? Through the talent bank, through the town manager's office or town administrator's office, and fill out a talent bank form. We are desperately seeking a seventh member. So, all right, with that said, we are moving into the first item of business, which is a continued notice of intent for SE 83-2398 Mark Burgess Shorefront Consulting for Paula Perone Trust, 12 Pleasant Street, raising the grade in the riverfront area land subject to coastal storm flowage and the buffer zone to a coastal bank. We have a letter from the representative Mark Burgess on behalf of my client. We are requesting that the current notice of intent filing for SE 83-2398 be withdrawn without prejudice. So we are, again, do we have a motion to accept the withdrawal?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Nothing to sign.
No, not right now. Next order of business is a new notice of intent for SE 83-2405, Dan Ojala, Dan Cape Engineering for Claudia and Tim Norton, 13 Webster Road. It's an after-the-fact filing for clearing, grading, and construction of walkways, retaining walls, and other hardscape and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Dan.
Good morning, or evening, I guess it is already. One quick day for me. Chairman Hoops, members of the commission, my name is Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport. With me are both the homeowners for 13 Webster Road here in West Yarmouth. And we're here to request an after-the-fact filing. It's Tim and Claudia Norton. There was miscommunication and so forth, but this is not near a wetland resource area. There was some question as to whether or not there was a riverfront which affected the area, but we examined the state maps and determined that this was not a riverine system near us, so that took one of the factors off of the equation. So it's no wetlands except the land subject to coastal storm flowage. I would describe it as it's kind of a unique site in that the flooding actually comes from the front of the house. It would have to, if you look at the 10 contour around the site, the flooding would come from the north, crossing over the street, down the driveway, flooding the back, and only then would it spill into the low area that's behind us. And that's important, just because it's you're not allowed to create something which would hurt a neighbor in terms of perhaps impounding an area that would give them extra flooding or something like that. And I would remind the board, too, that you have to be very careful with coastal systems, because unless you have a small swale area, nothing you can do will affect a coastal storm. It's what we like to refer to as a pin in a bathtub effect. You put a little bit of fill, but it's coming from all around and all over, and you're simply not going to affect the floodwaters on a big coastal, cyclonic event, coastal flood. But to the extent that we can, we're certainly doing the right thing, I think, here. The owner doesn't have a plush lawn all over the back. Instead of putting all that fertilizer, he's chosen kind of a xeriscape for that area. It's stone with a couple of tasteful plantings, And all the paver areas are drain into pervious areas in a very large dry well system. A little bit of the history, not to get into it much, but they had some flooding from the back. It was a low point, if you look at the old topography, kind of a walkout that all the water flowed into. And during a big event, he would get water in there, and he got kind of tired of that. So he put in a great big drainage system and then terraced up the yard and put the drains away from that area so that it wouldn't flood him out anymore. But in doing that, inadvertently, I suppose, we realized that he was subject to your jurisdiction. Again, we're not particularly close to any resource areas except the flood zone, and we do apologize for doing that work. The neighbor noticed and let Brittany know. There's a little wall in the back that the neighbor is here and would like fixed up. We undermined it a tiny bit. And that's going to be repaired by this proposal. We've proposed a nice stone wall to replace that, and I think the comment from the neighbor was that that's fine as long as you fill it in with dirt behind it, which I think that's a reasonable thing to do to kind of button this up and go on to bigger problems. So I would remind the board that, even with new flood regulations, there's no strict standards when it comes to land subject to coastal storm flowage. You certainly don't want to be flooding your neighbors out. In this case here, he's designed an extensive drainage system to handle all the water from the site. Again, we're not dumping a ton of chemicals, fertilizer into the rear yard. It's pristine water that will be going down. It's not like a parking lot where you get brake dust and that sort of thing. It's just clean roof runoff to dry wells, and we think we're treading very lightly on the environment with a zero-scape or a very low-impact rear landscape design. We feel we completely comply. Again, there's no specific standards with land subject to coastal storm flowage, but again, what you look at is that you're not, interrupting a regulatory floodway, which there's none on Cape Cod, but something similar to that, and which we'd be not doing. And so there's a little bit of walls remaining to finish up the work, and would respectfully ask your permission to do that. And again, we'll button up against a neighbor to neaten up that situation. We'd be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
I still look at this even after the enforcement and everything else. I'm just flabbergasted, to be honest with you, but well, I'm gonna turn it over to the rest of the board first, and then I'll make my comments after that. Would anybody like to have any questions, or?
Yeah, I have a question.
Paul?
I think somewhere here, Dan, you said something about that this construction and the situation on the property now doesn't pose, the way it is, any deleterious effect to the area, to the neighbors, to the property of itself. Do you confirm that?
Yes, absolutely. I examined the flood zone maps, the topography, both what we shot and what existed prior, and I would absolutely say that the a little bit of fill that we've done in that southeast corner does not affect that neighbor. In fact, there'll probably be a little bit less runoff heading towards him now than was prior, which is the standard. And we put in an extensive drainage system. He shared photographs of what he put in the ground there, and it's very extensive. And, I'd remind the commission, it's a free country, and if someone wants to put a splash park in their backyard, within permission, they can do that. If you have permitted, huge things on Route 28 with all kinds of things in the flood zone here. It's just a rear portion of a home. It's a zero-scape, which is, probably an up-and-coming design, very little nitrogen into the groundwater, which is the main concern. And in that manner, I think we are treading lightly. The flooding is not extensive, is well contained on the site. And the neighbor, we do acknowledge that we undermined his wall a little bit, and we're going to fix it right up.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I would add to, just to be absolutely clear, that the restriction on fill, as far as I know in Yarmouth, is that you can't fill more than 4 feet above the natural grade of the street, and we're nowhere near that here. It's lower than the street in the back there, so no zoning concerns whatsoever. Thank you.
Notice on your plans that you have some proposed shrubs putting in. Is that where the circles are on that,
Right, yes.
So where those little circles are, is a shrub,
Correct.
4 shrubs?
Yep, yes.
and those would be native plants?
I don't think would be restricted to that, but, you know,
Well, it's on the plan, it says proposed native.
That would be,
well, then, if that's what we put, then that's what we put.
Okay.
I don't know that we'd live with, if
I
it was,
assume, I assume that I would look around the neighborhood and see what everybody's got and put the same thing.
We have a list that you can look at.
there's a lot of good natives. I don't think we have a problem with that.
Yeah, I'm not good. You have a list, that's great.
And you can do
I'm
anything from a
not an expert
holly
at
to,
those, so.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I have to agree with Chairman Hoops that I am stunned by the clear cutting, for lack of a better term, of an area. And would like to see more better plan with more trees and other things that, other plants that would make it less clear cut than it is. I'm trying to use nice words here.
Well, if I just might, I mean, we had a septic system put in. That means the old septic system was crushed and filled, right? And that's right behind. And then the new septic system, and then that's started the clearing, basically. It's a lot of clearing area for the new septic system. Just to be clear.
I
that's all.
understand that.
Yeah,
I
okay.
also think you don't have to
Be so
have so much,
energetic about it.
well, yeah, to be honest, to have so much,
Hardscape?
yes, or
Ah,
not very many, I mean, those 5 little bushes or 5 little bushes, not, to me, yeah, 5?
Well, there's a bunch out
There's more.
front.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Oh,
9,
up at the
10,
corner,
11,
yeah, I
12.
missed those. But still, that's my comment.
Yeah, I expect to see 12 creeping junipers there. So.
Oh, the owner, my wife, lovely Claudia, wanted me to just say, along that, I don't know, what is that side over there, this side?
West side.
West side, the idea would be to put, we can absolutely fill all of that in, if, you know,
Will be a garden,
garden.
all that side.
Yeah.
Like
Plantings?
replace the trees
Trees, yeah.
and flowers and bushes, everything in this side.
Yeah, that's good.
That was in the beginning, they have a plan.
If that's part of the plan, we should see it on the plan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd love to see that on the plan.
I would,
We would be happy to submit that as a revised plan as a condition of approval. And again, I would remind you folks that, you know, your performance standards in a land subject to coastal storm flowage are, you know, there's not that much there, you know, it's a free country, and unless you have a specific rule about, you know, amount of impervious area, amount of pervious area, amount of vegetation, you know, lawns are, you know, not the best thing in the world in terms of nitrogen, you know, and here we're preventing some of that by having some large patio areas and some gravel pervious areas. So, you know, it is a free country, and I don't think it's an entirely bad thing for the environment. And if there was a rule against it, fine, you know, enforce away, but I think you'd have to stretch a little bit to find a rule that would say that we cannot do what we're doing here. It's a well-thought-out plan, in my opinion.
Just one other thing.
yeah, go ahead.
Can I? Okay, I definitely agree it's a free country. You know, the thing is, what I know, would you, Brittany or Ed, agree with Dan's interpretation of that? That, you know, let's say if you went back in time and you came forward with this plan the way it ended up now, would there be anything that you would recommend in terms of doing or not doing if this was the plan to deal with this lot in this fashion?
I wouldn't agree with everything Dan has said, but he completely true with the performance standards. There's not a lot the commission can do to restrict
I'm sorry,
the
say that
project.
again?
Sorry, there's not a lot the commission can do with the performance standards of this project. I would say that there are certain ways you can have a lawn, like Cape Cod lawn, no pesticides, less maintenance. That would be very much an improvement to gravel in many situations. But since you have already installed an extensive drainage system, we would rather see lawn that would be maintained responsibly than gravel in most cases. But like you said, we can't really say you can't have gravel in a lot of the cases with the performance standards for the flood zone.
Yeah, and this is a residential site. I would be completely on a different page if it was commercial and someone's put trucks back there or something, dripping oil in the aquifer. You know, you need a proper oil water separators and other things. But this is a residential area, and, you know, really to each their own, and it's, I think, you know, passes muster and could be approved without getting into it too much further.
I have trouble with the fact that this is, again, an after-the-fact filing, rather than a proper method of doing this, which would have been a filing before they did all this work. You know, it's,
Yeah, just so you understand, you know, I agree with what you're saying, Dan. Yeah, there are no performance standards. It's land subject to coastal storm flowage. I'm going to vote for this project with the revised plan showing at least some planting, but I'm also going to tell you that this, again, I agree with David. It's like this was an after-the-fact filing. It was done without permission. And so I think you can wait and take a little bit of a beating on this, too. I think I'm not going to make you take things out, but if you had come before the commission and asked for this legally and properly, I don't think I would have been allowing this extent of hardscape. So, yeah, I'm going to vote for it, and I don't like any of it, but again, it's a free country. You can do whatever you want to in a flood zone without performance standards, but you got to hear that we're not real pleased with it, and that's all I'm going to say on it. It's like I will vote for this project because I don't have any alternative. There's no means or mechanism for me to make you remove anything, and therefore I'm not going to ask you to do that. I would ask that you plant and show a revised plan showing plantings at least along that northwest property line, and I would suggest that you plant it fairly thickly. Other than that, you're right. I mean, what's one man's art is another's junk. So I'll leave it with that. Brittany, anything else?
No, you pretty much covered it. I agree.
Anybody in the audience have any comments or questions on this one? Yes, sir. Hold on.
Can you please
hold
come
on.
to the podium?
Yeah, come on up to that podium over there, and then state your name for the record.
right there.
up there.
Oh,
Just
just passed it. Sorry.
My name is Joe O'Reilly. I'm the neighbor on the northwest border. There are at least 7 trees. I believe there were 7 trees cut down along that border. I came before this commission when I bought my house, and because I was on the coastal bank, or the riverfront, or whatever you want to call it, I had to put in a conservation garden of 1,100 square feet. And at one point, there was a tree in that area that was damaged, and it was going to come down on my neighbor, Susan Sculler's house or my house, and it was on our property line. So the tree company made us go before the board, or call Kelly Grant, and she said we could cut the tree down, but we couldn't stump grind. And then, when I was going to put the conservation garden in, after the tree had been taken down and non-stump grind, I said, you told me I had a year to replace it. Well, how can I replace it? There is a root there, a stump. So what I did, and we agreed, is I suggested I put beach plum shrubs in. So I put 2 of them in there to cover the area, and she was satisfied with that agreement. On the northwest side of my house, when I bought the house, there were these trees, the area was shaded. So I'd put native plants in there that were all geared towards shade. Now it's full sun. Everything has been taken down. We're not going to get into the lack of privacy issue that I have in my backyard, but it's completely sun. My plants aren't doing well in the sun. Plus, the environment has been changed. There were 7 healthy trees, oak trees, in that area. They're gone now. Putting in a few shrubs in these little circular ditches is not going to solve the environmental problem. The area looks like hell. And I'm not happy because A, I conformed, I went before the board, I did what Kelly asked. I put in native plants, I passed the inspection. They took the lien off my deed because I had conformed. Now, if you say that when someone comes before you pre-hardscape, you probably wouldn't have allowed it, it doesn't seem fair that you're going to allow this to take place without restrictions. I've been dealing with the restrictions willingly. I understand the purpose of the board in conservation. But to say that someone can do this and not be responsible enough to put back the trees, put back the nature, I mean, the oak trees are responsible for a lot of wildlife and pollinators and everything else. That's all I have to say.
Okay, so, thank you. I do understand I understand the frustration you have with this. And like I said, I do want everybody to understand that, you know, when I said if you bring this before us properly, we would have certainly asked for a reduction in hardscape. We probably would have, not to say that we would have necessarily gotten everything. We may have gotten something smaller, but the reality, under the Wetlands Protection Act, the only wetland resource area on this whole property is the flood zone. And unfortunately, the state has never come up with performance standards for flood zone, okay? And so what that basically comes down to is the fact that if somebody wants to come in and clear cut, and we've seen this happen not just here, but throughout many different parcels in town, if somebody wants to come in and clear cut a land subject to coastal storm flowage area, a lot that's solely flood zone, there's nothing I can do to prevent that. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. So when I say we would probably not allow as much, we would try and get it reduced certainly. But again, if you feel you have an issue because they've cut the trees down and that you've been impacted somehow financially or economically, then you certainly have a right to pursue that civilly. But that's not something that we can help you with. It's not the purview or jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. So I do understand what you're saying, and I do appreciate the fact that, you know, most people are like you and come before us and do things the correct and legal way. And, you know, I appreciate that. All of the commissioners, I think I can say thank you for doing that. But I think that's where we stand. So I understand your frustration, but there's very little we can do in flood zone only filings. Dan.
Yeah, just to buttress that, and so the general public is absolutely clear on it. A coastal bank, you know, eroding into Mill Creek and the associated 50 and 100-foot buffers are a lot different than what we're dealing with here. This would be a once in 100-year or a 0.1% chance in any given year event of some salt water flooding the area. So I don't care what you got planted, it's not going to be real happy with salt water. But in it comes across Webster Road, flooding down, filling our basement, filling the whole kettle hole behind us, and then slowly oozing down into the earth below us. And what can you do against that? There's not much. A bank, you can retain soil, you can have plants, but with a coastal flood, there's very little. And it just makes a big difference. The details matter. In that case there, you had a very specific coastal bank with the buffers that stopped well short of our lot line, so they affect him and not us. It's apples and oranges, and it just should be clear that there is a different set of performance standards for the two different areas.
Okay, Ron, did you want?
Sue, were you gonna go first? Sure.
And again, I would just ask everybody, again, this is a very difficult area, but it's like we have a lot of people apparently who want to speak up, and so we just keep your comments short and focused on conservation-related material only. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll do my best. My name is Susan Schollis. My address is 8 Brewster Road. I am the person that made the decision to sell this property to Tim and Claudia Norton. That was based on a letter that Tim and Claudia had sent to me, which I submitted, and I know Brittany, I don't have it handy, Brittany, or I'd read it. And I know, maybe those were Tim and Claudia's plans at the time, but basically what he said was he didn't expect to make many changes to the yard. And leading up to the sale of this property, which belonged to Hazel Foster Baker Vining, who lived to be 105 years old, I tried to put an easement where those trees were along the northwest property line, but nobody was interested in purchasing the house with the easement in place, so I sort of was forced to lift it. But I was very heartened when Tim wrote me that note, and I felt that I was doing the best that I possibly could. So I made the decision to sell the property to Tim and Claudia. I feel that was a very unfortunate decision on my part. That little copse of woods there had a name. We called it Hazelwood within the neighborhood, and it was important to. It was a squirrel's nest that was probably 20 years old. There were, we'd get an owl around this time of year, it'd stop in. It's all gone now. Came down one fell swoop. A lot of really old growth oak, as we were talking about those 7 trees there. And then just to, I heard one thing that bothers me a little bit. So I was primary caregiver for Hazel for more than 20 years. And that basement that he's talking about flooded, never flooded. It never flooded. There was never any water in there, never any problem with the furnace, nothing. That's as much as I can say. I'm sorry to take your time, but it's very important to me. And I feel like I really had to just get up and share those things with you, and that unfortunately this is very disappointing. So thanks for your time and all the effort you've all put into this, and for being here at all as volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron?
Ron Cadillac, 18 Brewster Road. I'm a direct abutter. I'm concerned that no one's brought up that in the flood zone, you're not allowed to build walls over 2 feet in height. So a lot of what is out there is not legal unless ZBA approves it.
Remember, that's all building, Ron, that's building and zoning issues. That has nothing to do with conservation.
Correct, but when I was here the other day, no one had filed for ZBA approval of that.
I don't think one is required.
It's not my, yeah, that's an issue that zoning board would have to take up.
As far as I know, Ron, a landscape wall is not really limited. You can't fill more than 4 feet above the average natural grade of the road on a lot in a flood zone in Yarmouth.
Well,
but
I
see
didn't bring the
anything-
zoning regs here, but it's written in the regs that you can't have a wall higher than 2 feet, so that you can fill up to 4 feet. But in a flood zone, you cannot build a wall higher than 2 feet unless
But again,
the
we're not.
Board of Health approves it for the septic system. That's the only exception that's written into the zoning regulations.
But again, you need to focus on conservation related. So how does it relate to performance standards and impacts to the flood zone? Those are legitimate concerns, but they're not something that the Conservation Commission can control.
No, but how can you approve a plan that has something in it that's
For the
not,
first step.
doesn't meet zoning?
They're required to come to us before they go to zoning board of appeals, if they have an appeal to file.
Well, I'm not happy with this situation at all. And he was my client until they wiped out all the trees. And then I dropped him as a client, so.
May I please Ron, you
I don't know.
and I decided to take down a couple of trees
I don't know
for
how
your
many of the
garden.
Comments are going to be relative.
Maybe the short-term memory problems are surfacing here, but also,
All right, hold it,
Yes.
hold it, hold
Maybe-
it. We are not going to have,
want to go down that path either.
not going to go down that path, okay?
I don't have any comment on that either.
All right, so
I'm the owner.
does it relate to the building?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Please talk
Can you
into the
stand to
microphone.
please.
Yes, but I want, if you can show the plan. The
On the
plan, the
screen?
easement, that Susan was talking,
This plan?
we want to keep the garden. When we start to throw some trees, the guy say the trees are dying. And we want just to replace. That was a jungle and we want to make a garden. Yes, in memory the hazel. That, I thought that was the shape, the easement. And I was just make a garden. Put trees, put plants, put everything. And I think so I will look beautiful until someone stop. If not someone stop, that will be a nice garden for now. Just give an opportunity to show how the idea, the plants, trees we have in mind.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
if you're going to do planting, again, you should have showed that on the plan to begin with, but, you know, we will approve the project based on receipt of a revised plan showing that. Right. Are there any other people who have any comments on this one, or questions?
My name is Mark Steinkraus. I live at 91 Standish Way.
Sorry, could you tell me your name again?
Mark Steinkraus, 91 Standish Way. Thank the commission for doing their work. It's not easy. And this is a good example of it. Thanks for the civics lesson by the engineer over here. Anyway, the long and short of it is Mr. Norton sought my opinion on many occasions when he first bought the house about cutting down trees and where to locate an additional parking space. And every time I said to him, if you want to be a member of the community and the neighborhood, don't cut down the trees. Don't build that alternative driveway, which he did anyway. So he's very disingenuous. He is. He's not to be trusted, and I don't think the commission should accept any plan that isn't written down, every single word, because he'll take advantage of the situation. He's not a good member and standing of our neighborhood, and again, I thank the commission.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Vote online.
Last issue for the public here. Anybody online, on Zoom, who would like to comment, raise your hand. I see Fred Delfino.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes, again, and just so you know, again, please keep your comments focused on conservation jurisdiction only, okay?
Yes, thank you. So we're the Delfinos, we're a direct abutter. We live at 15 Webster Road. So I guess what we'd just like to implore the committee is to be really specific in terms of asking for specifics around the plantings. Because what I will say is Dan had mentioned that there are currently tasteful plantings there, but what both Dan and Claudia, what Ron and Tim and Claudia currently have are either dead or plastic. And that's what we have now to look at. So I would really be requesting specifics around the plantings to make sure they are something that add to the beauty and are native to the Cape. I think the only other thing that I would add, or two other items, is about the clearing. So not only did they clear trees that were on their property or abutted other properties, but they went ahead and cleared half of our trees on our property. So that was something that, you know, they go further than just what's on their own property. And they lie about it. So you really can't take their word because they're really devious when they go about things. And I think finally what I would say is just about the extensive drainage. So, you know, to Susan's point earlier about, you know, never having any drainage issues, when I looked at some of the last few storms that we've had, I overlook our neighbor Andrew, who's another abutter to Tim and Claudia, and his backyard has filled up more than I've ever seen before, which worries me because he abuts me, and that's now backing up into my yard. And there is an underground stream there, and I think part of it is because it's coming from some of the work that it's an effect from basically having a concrete landscape, which really belongs in a commercial zone and not in a residential area. So I think those are just some of the things that I wanted to raise to this committee tonight, and just wanted to say thank you for your time and your work.
So I'm Fred Delfino as well. Last comment to that. As far as the draining under the pre-existing patio that you saw there, the question remains of where does all that water go to? We thought we'd noticed some underground pipes pouring out into the house behind him. Yes, the new well, dry well put in at the footings of the basement is new, but everything that was pre-existing, where's all this draining to? Do we have maps? Do we have, if all these drainage systems were put in, are they on the maps that you folks have there? Do you have the proof that that drainage exists other than the dry well at the outside of his basement door, which based on his landscaping is a natural flow of water to fill that area?
I could respond.
Okay, if you could keep it.
Sure, yeah. So that 5.4 elevation where the lower drain is, there's an extensive drainage system there, and most of the lot does drain down into that area. And, the fire pit and patio area are, semi-pervious, but do pitch. You can see the stairs go right down into that lower area in a couple of places, and that would be the majority of the water on the site. And I'd remind that it used to pitch south, so that there would have been natural runoff, and instead it's leveled, and you generally get more infiltration that way, especially when it's tipped a bit towards the area drains. And the area drains, it's one of the larger systems I've ever seen put in a house. I think he'll be just fine with what he did there.
Anybody else on Zoom have any comments or questions? Raise your hand digitally. Andrew Layton? Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, excellent. Very good. How's everyone tonight? So I'm directly, I'm a direct abutter to the south, the corner that everyone's been talking about. My yard is the one where all the water goes from all around. And the only thing that I've noticed since this construction is that it may be pitched, and there may be allegedly extensive drainage network, I think is how it was termed. But when it rains more than a light rain, you can see the water sheeting off of the south side and the east side of the patio. It's, it pours off kind of like, a heavy rain, it pours off like a waterfall, regardless of what direction it's pitched. It's not pitched enough that it all goes to the west. So that's the only thing I've noticed different. And, I've always had flooding, but it's more consistent now where my yard, every time we get a heavy rain, I now have a pond in my backyard. Which is, challenging to try to mow through the water sometime. But, so I guess those are my 2 cents. Is, I have noticed changes.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
Anybody else on Zoom have any comments, questions? Raise your hand digitally. Last chance for Zoom. Do you feel comfortable reviewing the revised plan, or do you want it to come back and have the commission look at it?
I'm comfortable reviewing it.
I think I'd advise you to let.
Unless you want to, that's great. Have it bring back to the commission.
Yeah, I have a
Seem
hard time
reasonable.
voting on this, to be honest with you. I know I heard what you said earlier, but I go back to the fact that this is after the fact. And I know Paul would probably agree with me, getting a little tired of after the fact, people asking for forgiveness after the fact, no matter whether this is a free country or not. We still have to follow rules, and I would have a hard time voting yes. So, obviously I vote no, then it doesn't pass, so I want to put that right out there. I don't know how other commissioners feel.
So Dan, I can see on the site plan how in this area it pitches downward and then it comes level, and you can see that really well in this photo that it actually does pitch down here. And I can see in heavy rain how it could come up over the wall even if it's slightly pitched towards the center. Is there any way that could be improved with some slight modification to ensure that the water doesn't sheet off of the side of the south side and the east side?
Yes, you can certainly put any kind of a little strip drain or berm in there if there is indeed a problem. You can solve anything with money.
Perhaps like a berm on the end so it doesn't.
I think we'd agree to,
engineer.
we could certainly put in a little strip drain and tie it into the subsurface drainage if there's any chance of runoff there. We certainly don't want to inconvenience the neighbor, and, again, there was some runoff before, but gauging exactly how much is tough, so if there's zero after, I think that's the best situation, so.
Yeah, it's tough to gauge the situations in the past and the present, but if there's any way we could improve it, that would be the best.
Would be glad to add that to the revised plan.
We appreciate that.
Also like to see more plantings.
Yeah, they're going to add the plantings on the revised plan for our review.
I mean, and David, I understand what you're saying. Again, it's just that it goes back to the simple fact that there are no performance standards for this. So what they did, whether or not you find it personally offensive, and I totally understand that, it's not something that we have a right or authority to prevent. Let's put it that way.
I understand that, but.
And you vote, that's your decision, and you vote the way you feel you should vote.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yeah, just one other
Paul?
comment, again, the biggest problem, obviously, is that this is an after-the-fact filing, and certainly if it had been brought forward initially, notice of intent type of thing and everything, it was reviewed. That's not only a time when, we make sure regulations are followed, but also it's a good time to make suggestions about the area. We can't say too much about what the community and the neighborhood would like, but that's the path of least resistance in terms of making changes, I think. And so that's the biggest thing. And you see people come before us who have done things without any permits, without any filings, and it's disappointing. The thing is that it seems like, as Ed has said, there's not much that can be done at this particular point because the regulations don't require, in a sense, that or allow anything to be done by this commission. So I hope that in the future, a lot of plantings will be put in. It'll be part of the plan. I hope that the areas will be restored, in a sense, to a more vegetated area, which would be more in keeping with the neighborhood. And I hope things get better over there, So, but hands are tied in many, many ways, so.
I think you're both right. I think certainly, and which both said are true. I think there are things that you could certainly do to improve the situation there. And so I would suggest that you take some time. I can't make you ask for a continuance, but I would suggest that you might want to consider that and consider the options that you may, the things that you may be able to do to help alleviate some of the issues that you've heard, especially as it relates to flooding, rainwater management, stormwater management, and planted material. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, because I think if you were to call a vote right now, I don't think you'd be successful.
Well, it's unfortunate. Finishing would be important. I mean, we stopped everything. I mean, finishing, it might look quite a bit, it should look quite a bit different, you know? And it's unfortunate, and I'm not gonna.
That's what I'm saying. The plan has to show what you're planning on doing.
So judgments are being made when it's not finished, so. And I could respond to every one of these, but we don't, and if it's not gonna change anything, I'm not gonna bother.
But again, the plan needs, you need to show all of what you're planning on doing on the plan, so we have something that we can vote on. And so if you're gonna be planting material along the northwest property line, then you need to show what material you're planting. If you're going to do something that's going to alleviate some of the stormwater issues, then you need to show those on the plan. That needs to be done so we can consider it. Because if you don't put those sorts of things on the plan, you're not going to convince everybody. And if you don't convince everybody, then you're going to have a tough row to hoe there. I mean, there's a lot of.
And, yeah, there's certainly a lot here. What we will do is we'll absolutely request a continuance to a time and date certain. We'll address some of these, the drainage matters and show some plantings on there. And we'll respectfully ask for your approval based that your jurisdiction is, somewhat limited. Again, you can't please all of the people all of the time. Some people like to have cut down trees to have solar. Other people love the trees. There's a lot of different people in this world, but we'll make it nice, neat. It'll be appropriate, and we'll come back with that. And we sure would appreciate an approval because, again, I think we're squarely within the performance standards, especially once we touch up the drainage a little bit. And thank you very much for your time.
So do you want to, are you asking for continuance?
Yeah, I think we need about at least 2 weeks, but I'm gone for a week, so could we do a little bit more? I mean,
More time, yeah.
yeah. What do we got for a continuance date
We
that would
have,
be reasonable?
October 19th, November 2nd, and November 16th.
All right, so if we can live till November 2nd,
What's the one after that?
November 16th.
16th. And then at that point, we would hopefully submit the revised plan, they would approve it, and then there would be a brief appeal period during which we wouldn't be able to start, and then we'd record it, and then we can start the work.
Oh, I'm sorry, November 16th.
We may also be able to have frickin' Ellie Mullen-Eyes.
Yeah, we will.
Will they do that?
You want to do it
They would.
sooner?
Yes.
I could have one of my other guys come if you need it sooner, so.
I said, when I went, Ellie was with me. I think Mark was with me, too.
Okay. Given it a little bit of time, we'll also allow the other two commissioners that are not present tonight to review all of the hearing. And we'll give you 6 people that will vote rather than the 4 that we have right now, so.
Terrific, and encourage the members to, you can vote with your heart, but you're often better to vote with the exact regulations and rules and be very consistent with them and enforce them thoroughly, but only the rules that are written, so that it's all fair for everybody. And I would also say that you're looking at doing about another 1,000 acres of jurisdiction coming up with flood zone only, with this conservation. It's going up with to a few feet in elevation, so there'll be a tremendous amount more of these filings coming in for you to review, and perhaps if you do have some, 75% impervious or some rules like that, then that will give a little more guidance to applicants, because right now there's not too much on the table in terms of exactly what to do once you're outside of the riverfront and the coastal bank setbacks that are very strict, closer to the resource areas. Thank you.
We are hoping to be much more specific.
Yeah, we will be working on that.
Yeah, without taking away too many property rights, please. Thank you.
Yes. Mostly dangerous channelization of floodwater is our focus here to protect our people and our
Yeah,
properties.
things did affect people, and there's zoning for other things, and as long as everyone in the town votes for it, then we all live with it. And there's a Board of Appeals, similar to this board, that can vary those regulations on a case-by-case basis if needed. So we're happy to continue. What was our date? Should we go with the 16th, or we can do it quicker if you need to? What was the next date? Is it 2
2nd or the
weeks?
16th?
November 2nd, November 16th,
And then November after that?
December 7th.
So right now, we're October 5th. Is-
7th would be perfect.
So I would,
December?
December 7th, so I'm just,
December 7th, our new regulations could be in place by then, but we would have.
Oh, boy.
we'd have to take.
We haven't
the
even
old-
seen them yet. How could they be in
Yes,
place?
no, we would be hearing this under the old regulations, but
November 2nd, can you do that?
You've already filed
Yeah.
at this point, so you would
no,
be
you're
held.
under the
Under the
old,
old
but I'm just letting,
regulations,
yeah, sorry for the confusion.
So
I
we're
just make one comment, and, and maybe, I don't think this is inappropriate. Dan, you present some very good information. However, and I think this committee does look at the regulations and follow the regulations. So thank you for the reminder to continue to do that.
Yes.
The biggest thing is to try to get folks to file their notices of intent and their plans before they do it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something that the engineer, other people who work with these folks could reinforce as well. And that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Point well taken, and you're casting a much bigger net in a few months, so there'll be a lot more people that need to be made aware of it, and I'll have a lot more work.
We realize that.
All good, though. Coastal resiliency is not a bad thing either.
What was the date you chose?
So we're going to go to December 7th, is that it? If possible, at 7 PM or whatever you guys meet, 5?
Okay,
And we'll have it in well before that, so you can review it. And we really appreciate your time, and we do apologize. Again, like those ones in the future, it's a little bit abstract, this flood zone. There's no wetland, it's just an area that can flood, and it takes
So
a
you
lot
just
of
need to
people
make-
by
You just
surprise.
need to make sure that you have the plan into us by December 1st, right?
Yes.
no,
Well-
so it would be
November
the
30th.
day before Thanksgiving.
November 30th.
No, oh, yes, sorry, November 30th. I cursed.
Have all the information filed by November 30th, so you can post it online, and
Okay, so do I have a motion to continue this to December 7th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
sure.
All right, see you on the 7th.
Thank you.
As a point of order, if one of these fine folks wanted to plant a tree in the flood zone only, would that be an administrative matter? Like, because I don't want to
Just
guarantee
planting?
that we're going to plant trees, but if we want to in the future, we could probably plant a few extra. But what we'll put on here, we'll promise to, and then you're free to plant more at any time if you check in with Brittany. Great, we'll see you soon. Thank you very much for your time and careful consideration.
Thanks.
That's because that's good. It's good you didn't.
I'll talk to you later.
All right, next order of business is another notice of intent. It's Hannah Raddatz, BSC Group. Is Hannah here?
Kieran's here.
Huh?
Kieran is here.
Kieran's here. That looks like Kieran Healy for BSC Group for Steve Bobola, Sand Dollar Customs LLC, 20 Bliscott Avenue, proposed raise and replace of a single-family dwelling, deck, parking area, and new septic and land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members. For the record, my name is Kieran Healy. I'm a land surveyor with the BSC Group. I'm here tonight representing Sand Dollar Customs for the construction of a single-family home at number 20 Bliscott Avenue. There is an existing building on the site that is in need to be removed, and we're proposing a three-bedroom dwelling on this property. The only resource area is just like the previous one, but not as contentious, I hope, in that it's only a flood zone. There are no wetlands within the area. The resource area is purely a flood zone. We are providing drainage areas for the recharge the roof runoff around the building, and we are proposing a new compliant Title V septic system. Other than that, it's a simple raise and replace of a dwelling. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Questions from the board?
Questions. I went out and saw the site. Very nice setup. We were just wondering, those some nice trees out front. Can you think of saving some of those trees right in the front of the property? Beautiful.
There are some trees in the layout in that area which we wouldn't have the right to take down. There are some trees, though, that would be close to where the house goes. Because of the septic tank in the back, we have to push the house as close to the street as possible. And I can't say we keep all the trees, but there definitely will be some trees taken down because of the potential, the location of the building would be under the canopy. So I don't know how many of those would be saved, but I'll definitely mention it to the owner and ask him if he could keep some, if that would be a possibility.
See those, sort of the ones right there in that picture? Those are right next to the street.
And, yeah, and actually, those are in, yeah, those are right next to the adjacent, to the telephone pole, so they're right on the street layout.
Yeah.
So they're as far away from the building as possible.
Yeah.
But I'll mention it to the client and see if those can be saved.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, just one question. And just for my information, when you do a project like this, it's an upgrade on the septic system, right, from what exists there?
Correct, yeah, but it's a completely, it's an existing two-bedroom septic system, so we're going with a three-bedroom. As a result, we need to be in full compliance with Title V regulations.
Excellent, okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Brittany, any comments, questions, concerns?
Not at the moment.
Anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom?
Oh, there's one.
There is.
Mr. Bobola, would you like to make a comments? Any comments?
Yeah, just one quick comment about the thicket of trees out by the front right corner of the lot. We do intend to keep most of that, as well as the rear left corner. There's some trees up in that particular area up by the fence in the back. So we're trying to keep as many as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bobo is with Sandala Customs, who is the applicant.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom? All right, so we are still waiting on DEP number, right, at this point?
We are.
Anybody get a no, we haven't gotten a DEP number? All right, so I don't think we have any issues with approving. We'll just have to wait. Actually, no, I can't approve. We'll just continue, but solely for the purpose of receiving the DEP number.
I think in the past we've approved, but we would have to accept whatever their comments are, if they have any, which I don't expect them to have.
Yeah.
Have we done that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're safe. Are you okay with us accepting it like that?
I'm okay with accepting it like that because as this is in a flood zone is the only resource area, I've never seen any
Yeah,
comments.
I don't
that
think
were-
they're going to make any comment. But- All right, so would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions and dependent upon a receipt of the DEP number and DEP comment?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's how you do a flood zone filing, Kieran. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Who made the motion on that? I missed it.
Paul and
Oh, thank you.
Pat.
Yeah.
There's something you can actually sign.
Wow.
If you can just hold them for just 1 minute, I'll be right back.
Nice.
Pat, I'm going to throw that to you. Did it get to you?
Gotcha. There you go.
Thank you, everybody. All right, next order of business is request for extension for SE 83-2199 Boat Hall Walk and Saltbox Beach Association.
Good evening. For the record, Mark Burgess of Showfront Consulting, representing Saltbox Association, and with me is Ed English, the current president?
President of Saltbox.
I haven't gotten out of that yet. Okay, so there's an extensive history of permitting with this site, but we're only here before you tonight to extend the current order of conditions for the, what I call the beach maintenance project. And it was extended under COVID until December of this year, so we're here before you to extend that order for another 3 years. No scope, no change in scope of the project, no change in site conditions, and because we had a mild winter last winter, there's been no nourishment. What?
You're going to have to make a disclosure saying that you're an abutter, and then ask if anybody has any issues.
Just procedure.
Listening, if they
Just
do,
a
then we'll have to
procedural question, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Say I would recuse myself.
Just say
I'm
that.
not a butter, but.
I didn't hear you,
neighbors to the side.
Just a procedural question, sorry, one moment.
Okay, no worries.
I think if you don't listen to it, then we can't listen to it. So if
Okay.
you recuse yourself, if you feel you should recuse yourself, then
Okay.
we'll have to table this, and that's fine too. So it's up to you whether or not if you feel like you can do the consideration without any bias or anything.
Okay.
Then you can go ahead. If not, you can
Well,
recuse yourself.
Yes, because I'm a neighbor. I'm going to recuse myself because I'm
Okay.
So it was,
new
All right.
to this neighborhood.
So we have an issue.
You're what now?
Sorry.
yeah, say in the microphone.
I am a neighbor to the Saltbox Association, so unless it's a problem with me listening to this.
You're in a butter to the project. You have every right to listen to it, and unless you have some kind of a financial connection
Financial
with
involvement,
Saltbox,
yeah.
it's not
I don't.
a conflict.
Okay, it's fine.
So that's usually the
You're
conflict
comfortable
of
doing
interest
that,
is,
though.
Sure, I'm
Okay.
comfortable.
okay.
Great.
Okay, do I need to?
You could start over,
I would
maybe.
start over again, Mark, because
Sorry.
No worries. Okay, so this order is for the beach management project that's been going on. It was extended because of COVID until December of this year. So it would have expired last year. So now that you have a formal request for an extension in front of you tonight to extend this for another 3 years so that they can continue managing the beach, which is a combination of dredging and nourishment. It's only been dredged once. It doesn't need to be done again, and it wasn't even nourished last winter because the winter was very, very mild. So there's no change in scope. There's no change in the site conditions, and obviously the work has already started. So with that, we would request a 3-year extension.
So I guess my question is, why aren't you just getting a certificate of compliance and then we would issue ongoing conditions under the certificate of compliance? Isn't that normally the way we would do it?
To allow what?
I mean, obviously, they're allowed to do a certain amount of dredging and nourishment, right? Under the current order, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question is, why would we be extending it? The work has already been done. Why wouldn't we get a certificate of compliance and have some sort of ongoing conditions that would address dredging and or nourishment as needed? Wouldn't that be the smarter way to do this?
I don't know why you're asking me. I'm not the applicant.
I was actually going to discuss that with you guys after we do this, but pros and cons. So their dredging permit is valid for another year. And maybe we have a bad winter and maybe they have to perform the work again. Yes, you can do that with if you close out the order, you can have ongoing conditions forever that basically say, okay, as long as the scope of work doesn't change, as long as the volume of nourishment or dredging doesn't change significantly, then you would just inform the commission that you're going to do the work again.
That answers my question right there. So then,
Well, but wait, but hold on. So but the dredge permit's only valid for another year, so we have to reapply for that. And I'd rather have an open order of conditions to be able to apply for that. So what I would ask is do it this one more time, and then very carefully and with detail, we can go through how to close it out. Even if we close it out before the 3-year extension and then do the ongoing conditions. I just don't want to rush through something like that with a project like this because it's very detailed. We should come up with trigger points if they're not already a part of the
so
project,
keeping the
and things
order
like that.
open, does that give you some sort of a technical advantage? More likely that you'd be more likely to receive a dredging permit?
No, I just don't want to confuse DEP by saying, here's an order of conditions, and then Brendan comes back and goes, well, it's not valid. And you need an order of conditions to apply for a dredging permit. So if we had a certificate of compliance, that wouldn't fit the bill. So I would want to cross that. I want to make sure that I agree with you that having a certificate with ongoing conditions, then you don't have to see us as often, and we just have the relationship with the board to let you know when the same scope of work is being done. I totally agree. I was going to ask you about that. So, but I don't want to do it right now because I want to make sure that DEP, what do we do with them? Now, if we have another 5-year dredge permit and they need to do dredging, well, then everybody agrees everything's in place to do it. The Army Corps permit expires July of next year also.
I'm a little confused about dates. You said December. I assume you mean December 2023, and then you said a year from December 2024. Which one is it?
Okay. No, so the order of conditions that's before you
This order,
is extended by COVID until December of this year.
2023.
Right. The other permits, the dredging permit and the Army Corps permit are valid through, well, at some point next year.
July.
Well, April for Army Corps and July for,
I thought the
July for the Army Corps and,
Chapter 91 license said that it was valid for 5 years from the date of issuance. So then in that case, it would be until 2026.
yep, I got the same, I just looked at my notes. So the dredge permit is good until March 5th of '26.
Yeah.
And you're asking to extend that dredge permit for 3 years beyond?
Well,
no.
He wants to, we're only dealing with the order of conditions that allow them to seek the permitting for dredging and nourishment through 91 and Army Corps.
Right.
Right?
So the order of conditions will parallel the dredge permit, and since we need to apply for a dredge permit probably a year before it expires, we'll have a valid order of conditions to be able to apply for another dredge permit.
So that's what I'm saying. So why don't we just say, give you a year extension, at which point you would be able to apply for the permit,
Well,
and then you could apply for the
Army-
COC.
But the dredge permit doesn't expire until '26. That's three years.
So I'm a little confused, in the respect that when we issue an order of conditions for dredging and nourishment, what is the commission's expectation that the project's going to last 5 years, or that it's going to last for 10 years? Because I would imagine we would want it to be revisited at some point in the middle to make sure that we're meeting all the performance standards that are relevant currently. So I don't want to extend it so far along. There should be at some point where we should issue a certificate of compliance, or one should be applied for in the middle there. Probably at the end of the first 5 years, or I don't know how you've done it in the past, but
I mean, so I can live with extending it to make it the 5
Chapter
year,
91, yeah.
so it meets 91 and Army Corps.
And I think it would be fair to say that if this was the last extension allowed,
And I think we would also tell you that this would be the last extension, the only extension that we would grant.
so that was the negative of it continuing, is that at some point, And this happened before, which is why we had to refile everything. When something gets so old, like beyond 10 years, then the plan isn't current. So things get to be so not current that you probably should catch up again.
Refile anyhow. then,
Correct.
at that
So
point.
I'm hip to that. It just right now, we just want to keep things parallel so we have time. And, you know, I have no time, so it'll be,
It sounds like we're agreeing to the end of the Chapter 91 to April 26, 2026.
Okay,
I would be okay with that then.
So for my notes, we are talking about
Extending
extending,
to April 2026.
Yeah, April 5th.
or March 5th?
Sorry, March, yep.
March.
March 4th.
I wrote March 4th, but it's March 5th.
Well, I get, when I do the calculation, it says, does it include that day or does it not? I don't know.
Not
So
sure.
4
5
or
is fine.
March 4th or 5th isn't going to matter to me. I know I need to start applying for another dredge permit a year before
For
that.
that.
So, and I promise I won't retire by then. Retire by then.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Good?
Yep.
2, or whatever it is?
That's
the
fine, the 2.
2.5 years or whatever.
But
it is.
also, I did have one other issue with the project, is that 130 square feet of salt marsh restoration was supposed to be completed, and it looks like only about a 7 by 7 area, which is about 60 or less square feet, has been completed. So I would hope to see that in the next year or so being started.
What's the,
Can you speak up and say it
Sorry,
again?
so there's this area on the plan. I'm going to zoom in. 130 square feet of salt marsh restoration was part of the original order of conditions, right by the stairs here. And this is 130 square feet, and it looks like only about half of that, or a little bit less, has been completed. So we'd want to see that full square footage, or close to it, be restored. So planting salt marsh grasses there.
we're doing our best. You know, that all the way back was complete sand. I'm real happy with how this
does look
looks
really
right
good.
now. But I don't have any problem moving forward.
Okay, that'd be great.
It actually protects the seawall.
Yeah,
That's good.
catches some sand there.
So you just want to come this way a little bit?
Yeah,
Can do.
anywhere you could meet the square footage, as long as it has a good chance of survival, is fine.
How did you tell that it was short?
It just looked like if I'd laid down, it would be about not that much bigger than me. So
I mean, like, what's beyond that? I thought this was done up against existing marsh.
it's covered. Sorry, I didn't take a picture on the other side. There's like, it's marked out with like string like this on the other side.
Well, then it's easy, yeah.
Yeah, we're also preventing people from walking through there. They have to go up and around.
Around, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna extend, the motion would be to extend the order to March 4th of 2026, right?
Mhm.
The right date now?
Okay.
And then I would also ask that the salt marsh, the rest of the salt marsh restoration be completed by, it's best to do that in, is it best to do salt marsh in spring or fall?
You could do it when you do salt marsh in the spring. In the spring is better, because if you put it in new in the fall, they could get wiped out in the winter. So you want to give it a chance to get going.
Well, let's just go to like, I pick a date, June 15th of 2024.
Brittany, when I,
Nothing's going to grow over the winter time.
No, that's,
Right.
so he's saying to plant
So,
it in the
In
spring.
next spring.
It gets real healthy about June, and then it grows up. So it'll be probably next
I'm just saying you need
a
to
year
make
from
the
now. I
effort.
could probably show you a nice
You need to make
increase.
the effort to plant the plugs by June 15th.
Yeah, just have
okay.
some of them planted.
I'm not
Doesn't have to
saying full
be.
restoration, I'm saying you need to plant the plugs so that we can see that you're trying to work toward that.
Very good.
by the time the order is ready to be closed out, it should look like that, only more. That's all. As long as Mother Nature cooperates. I'm rereading my notes, and I'm fine with the motion that's coming up. Well, why don't we just do that? And then, my notes tell me that the dredge permit's actually extended until June 10th of '27.
For Army Corps,
No, for the dredge permit.
for the Chapter 91?
Yes.
And why was
It normally would expire in 3/5 of '26, and then I had COVID extended to
Been told, but
June 10th of '27.
it would have been told just like everything else, but whatever their tolling date is, but I think,
You only would
we're
have
gonna
gotten
to put
3
a brakes
months.
on this.
Yeah, so it was issued in this date, March 4th, 2021. So you would have only gotten 3 months because the state of emergency ended June 21st, 2021.
I thought it was the 15th, but I came up with
June something, 2021.
2,186 days from June 15th of '21, which was June 10th of '27. Okay, well, I'll
I
look
think
at that
so.
again.
No, it would only get a few months.
The most you could have gotten would be 462.
Yeah, and that's the
So
total
that's the most you
number.
can add to the permit, because that was the length of the COVID emergency. So if you were 3 months short of the end of COVID, then you would have gotten essentially 3 months added on to
Yeah,
whatever
just what was remaining.
it was.
So it would be April.
Okay, well, we'll just go with the original date because we need to figure that out anyway. Yeah, I'll
Judging it-
look.
The nourishment is
I'll look
always
back.
completed in the winter anyway, isn't it?
What now?
It's usually completed in the winter anyway. Would those 3 months be significant for you?
No, it's just about how much time I have to refile permits, and even trying to do something a year from now is tough, never mind a year in advance from.
I would refile that one early then,
Yeah.
if that's the case, because I'm willing to go to what we said, March 4th, 2026, but I'm not going to keep willy-nilly back and forth with it. So
No, I said I'm fine with that motion, and
that's,
I'm going to read.
that's the one, that's the one you need to keep in mind.
Yeah.
All right, is there any further discussion among the board?
Can't nourish until after June 1st because of the flounder or something.
Well, that's.
So if I have to do it that year, I'd like to be able to extend it to like June 10th or something of that year.
Of 23. I mean, of 26. I see.
Instead of that March date, which is.
Okay, so Ed brought up a good point, but, let's see.
I mean, I would need to calculate those dates because I didn't have that information handy.
Do you have a tolling spreadsheet?
I have a spreadsheet, but not on this computer.
Oh. Well, look,
Well, okay, so what
this
Ed is saying,
which one are we worried about, the Army Corps? Is that what it is?
No, it's the same permit. He's just saying that they would only be able to dredge, but the nourishment takes
The
place.
dredge, the dredge permit, right? Is that what you were talking about?
right, and what Ed is bringing up now is that he can't nourish until after June 15th, right?
It's January
June
through
1st,
June.
I believe, because of the winter flounder or something, no one's allowed to renourish. So we've always done it the first or second week in June. But if this March date may be difficult for us to be able, if there's a bad winter that year.
Going to the 26th, right? Aren't we giving them we're giving them an extension till to
The 2026, yeah.
March 4th, 2026? That's,
It's a lot of time.
All I'm looking
Of
for is
time.
a couple of weeks. So if that year we need to do it, I can come back to Brittany and say, hey, we need to get it done this year. And as long as it's within whatever the winter flounder allows us, we'll do it. But
So it looks like even with the COVID tolling, the most you would be getting is to June 5th, which would only give you 5 days.
yeah, that would,
look,
It's not supposed to
I
be
understand what you're doing,
complicated.
but it's not my concern whether or not it makes it easier for you to make your permits work out. I think we're offering March 4th, 2026. Whatever you do after that, that's up to you. File whenever you need to file to do whatever you need to, but that's with other departments. That's not us. So
I understand. The point that Ed is making, right now, 3 years from the current expiration date would be 12/18 of '26. What Ed is saying is if we can just stretch it to, say, June 21st or June 30th of '26, that's still earlier than the full 3-year extension, but that would allow them to do the nourishment on the local level. And I have to deal with the state
Come back
permit.
for the certificate of compliance then. in March, on March 4th, 2026, you can apply for the certificate of compliance, and that will give you ongoing conditions under the COC that would give you the local option to do the nourishment.
Yeah, I suppose, yes. Is it that much of a problem to just extend it? You're still talking about 6 months less than a full 3-year extension, so.
I'm giving.
You know what?
I think they decided they wanted 2 years.
Yeah, you're talking about 2026, and I think Ed is giving you the directive, and that is, things run out, you have to reapply, instead of us trying to look in a crystal ball right now. You know, let it play out to March 4th, 2026. You'll know by that time if you had a bad winter. You'll do whatever you need to do in order to re-nourish at that particular time with new filing. So, you know, why keep talking about it?
Because the difference is that the normal expiration date of the dredge permit was March 4th or 5th of '26, but it's been extended through COVID, and we're not certain exactly how long that is. Plus, if it is into '26, if it's 3 months beyond 3 or whatever, 3, 4, 5, 6, it'd be June 5th. The point that Ed's trying to make is that if they have to do nourishment in June of '26, that if we just extend this to, say, June 15th
But
or
isn't Ed
so.
saying, well, why don't you wait and see? And then reapply, you come in with a certificate of compliance, and then you have options after that. I mean, you know, I don't see the problem.
Look, I'm ready to vote for this to be ordered by March 4th, 2026, and restoration that Brittany asked for by June, the plugs being put in by June 15th, 2024, which you said earlier you were okay with that.
I
I'm
was
ready to
till I
vote
look-
on that.
I
just
was
think we're
till-
going around in a circle that I'm not ready to do that circle.
Well, I'm getting to the point, quickly getting to the point where I'm just going to vote no, so.
I think you're
Okay.
pushing it, Mark. I think you should just go with what we have all agreed to 20 minutes ago.
And there is an option out with the COC then. But again, making it easier for you to seek your permits is not something that, I think we're doing okay right now. We've given you an extension for almost 3 years, right?
Yeah. 2.5 years.
2.5 years. So my suggestion to you is to take it and work around it then.
Okay.
All right, anybody, any further? We already went through them, right?
We did? No, I don't think we did.
Anybody on Zoom?
Thank goodness,
All
no.
right, unless there's any further discussion, would somebody like to make a motion to extend the order of conditions to March 4th, 2026?
And the
And,
restoration.
What did I say, this?
The plugs
salt marsh
by
plugs?
June 15, 2024. So moved.
Okay, you're moving it, I'll second it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
sorry, Paul, I
all
didn't
those
mean
in
to jump
favor?
on you.
What?
I didn't mean to jump ahead of you.
No, it's okay.
I'm in favor. Favor?
Aye, yeah.
Carries unanimously.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Let's see, we have 2 requests for certificate of compliance, one for SE 83-027, 62 High Bank Road, Bass River Golf Course.
Okay.
And another one for SE 83-168, 62 High Bank Road, Bass River Golf Course. These are both very old. Everything's good. Do I have a motion to issue the certificates of compliance for SE 83-027 and SE 83-168?
So moved.
Sorry, is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Got one more to sign.
Right, next order of business is enforcement for 6 and 8 Gilbert Street. It's unpermitted pervious patios and solid fence and land subject to coastal storm flowage. You guys want to, I assume you're here? And I'm going to let Brittany explain what's going on first, then we'll go to, we'll actually go to the board to see if they have any questions.
We have
see if
stuff
you
to handle,
understand.
so.
Okay, and then we'll go over to you then, all right?
Sounds good.
All right, Brittany.
6 and 8 Gilbert Street, they came to us recently for, I'm just going to try and find the date that they came to us. It was last year, early winter last year. for an RDA for an addition in the flood zone. And they completed that. They were seeking their occupancy permit, and so I did go for an inspection per their request. Unfortunately, they had installed several impervious paver patios in the flood zone, along with some fences.
Cement. Is that what it is? Cement?
Is laid in cement. I took a picture of the material used at the end. And so, since this work was not permitted in their DOA, I sent a draft enforcement order asking them to come in tonight to discuss it. And the draft enforcement order does require that the fences have 6 inches of clearance under them. And I did put a spacing requirement, but we can discuss what that would be in this part of the flood zone, because it might not be such high energy of a zone.
Is this a flood zone or is it land subject to coastal storm flowage?
Land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Okay.
So if we look at the site plan that they have, just to, those photos aren't always helpful. The patios shown in the photos are on this side, one here, with the fence around here, a patio on this side with the fence around it, and these 2 were existing. But I don't know if they were improved. They were all uniform looking, but I'm unsure about that. That is all.
Could you go back to show the locus map again? Because I'm
Yes.
drawing a blank on Gilbert Street.
Yeah, but also not.
I printed out the maps too.
It's off of Seaview Ave.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. All right, questions from the board? Brittany or the...
So Brittany, what we're asking is to put a 6-inch clearance below the fence and to make the patio with
So
pervious.
it would be either remove the impervious patios or I wrote seek permitting and replace them with permeable version, but that is up to discussion from the board. But the fences would be required to be modified either way.
Sorry, say that again, the fence?
Fences would be required to be modified
Right.
as part of the enforcement order because it is unsafe.
I think at that point, that neighborhood, I mean, it may be land subject to coastal storm flowage. I don't know how much real force we would have behind it. It's
Yeah.
more like a rise and fall type flooding. So, I mean, definitely, I would like to see the 6-inch clearance on the at the bottom of the fence. And I think, I don't even know if we would necessarily have to require any of the vertical slats, because I think it's mostly going to be
Yeah, I agree.
slipping underneath it.
Excuse me.
Bless you. And I would also get rid of those piles of stones there as well. Are we planning on doing any kind of planting around the patios or anything, or?
Oh, yeah, happy to comment, and thanks for your time. Kind of a rookie mistake on some of these things, so apologize for taking your time. My wife Ruth, myself Stephen. What we did was, actually, we went ahead and we corrected the situation. I have pictures of everything. We basically put 6 to 7 inches, raised the, lowered the grade, raised the fence there, so there is plenty of flowage back and forth now. Second, when you take a look at the patios we had taken all up. All those are original. We basically took them all up and put them aside, and we ended up putting them down in a different configuration. Okay, so we don't have those other patios that are kind of out front anymore of the house. We redistributed all of them, and they are on sand. I have pictures here.
that little bit of cement, my mason put those on the edges to keep the sand from eroding until we could get to putting in the loom and putting down the grass. And I show right here, they basically chip off when you step on them. It's a very, very light coat. And I do have pictures of lifting up the pieces. There's all sand. And there was some of the polymer cement that was put in, sand that was put in between. I had all of that removed this week, and I have pictures of all of it. So we got rid of all of that. We can just put down sand in between the pavers. And like I mentioned, all of the fencing now has 6 to 7 inches underneath it.
And then you're going to be, you said you are planting things around the patios as well?
We were just going to do grass to keep things, that the grass was always there originally. So we were just going to go back to having grass, and that was basically it. And just some pea stone around the edges to keep very low maintenance.
How do you remove polymeric sand? And you've already done that?
Yep. So I have pictures all here if you'd like to see them. I printed out pictures for everybody.
You gotta kind of scrape it out.
They did scrape it all out. It's all removed. And the thing about it is that we had actually done some of them ourselves, and we never put that polymer. And then I paid somebody to help us finish, and they put it down. I had no idea what it is. I mean, we've learned so much about conservation the past year that we never knew. So really, it only took about half the patios to have it scraped up. So we removed it all. We brought no fill in. There's no other, waterways. There's no other rivers or ponds or anything around us at all. And we had this new septic system put in that basically took up almost all of the yard.
I don't think this ever happened before where someone addressed their enforcement order before the hearing.
Generally, we don't want you to do that because what if we would have said, don't worry about it?
Yeah. I mean, what you said made sense, but this is we're rookies, so we're just trying to make sure that we do things right.
I think it's great somebody did that.
The only other question I had is this boundary, I guess, between you and your neighbor. Is there a lot of erosion going on? Is this their septic system? And are they?
We've reached out to Jay. Jay has visited our neighbors about this is a septic system that basically is flowing into our front yard. We talked about this in July. He visited our neighbor. They were supposed to put a wall up. We haven't seen it.
Okay. That is
So
concerning.
that's all your neighbor's property?
That's
Everything
none of
that you
ours.
see, all the eroding part is the neighbor's property as well?
It's all eroding onto our property.
Well, that definitely needs to be fixed, but
Yeah, I know Jay spoke with them. I sent Jay a note recently asking, hey, what's happening, but
I'll ask him too.
did you have any other thoughts?
Are they for Gilbert? Do you know their address?
They're 138 and 140 Seaview Ave.
Oh, thank you.
That picture, just out of curiosity, is looking at the neighbor's house?
That's a neighbor's
Yeah,
house.
I'm standing on his property about, it's hard to tell where I'm standing, but yeah, looking towards Seaview Ave.
These are all the pavers that were here when you bought the house. You just moved them around.
Yeah, we did add some, because some were broken. We did add some, but they're the same ones you could buy at Home Depot. They're all the same.
The same amount that was there.
We actually reduced, there was 1,200 square feet of patio. We went down to 862 square feet.
Just in different?
Different locations, yes. It's in the blue on that, try to highlight it.
well, I would encourage definitely I would just want verification that all of the fences are 6 inches minimum off the grade. And that's 6 inches above final grade, or are you gonna if you bring loam in and put seed down, you may have to adjust that again, but, so that's my only concern. As long as you maintain the 6 inches of clearance between the bottom of the fence and the finished grade, and I'm good with the fence the way, by keeping it that way. And it looks like they've done everything we asked them to do with the and the enforcement order, so
Yeah, and it was only a draft. So
at this point,
I guess we
I
don't
would
even
say
need
we
to.
ratify the, I would just say I'd ratify it, and you can check the box. You can check the
Addressed.
box, you've accomplished the full
Should we just
enforcement.
have an inspection next summer to make sure?
Yeah, I would go back in a year, just to check.
A year, yeah. Okay.
I think we're good with, because all the fencing's around Peastone, so it's really, I think we're gonna be okay with your concern. But yeah, that's fine, come on back out.
Other than that, then I think we're ready to go, unless anybody has questions.
I have a question. If you're ratifying the enforcement order, I still have to mail it to them, unless we're just going to. They've already done it.
I think we need to, I mean, they've essentially done what the draft enforcement order asked, so I would just
ratify
finalize
it.
that, we'll ratify that.
Mail it.
I mean, you don't even have to mail it, I mean, you can,
I mean, I do, to make it an enforcement order. But it's not a big deal. I will do that.
I'd either mail it or hand deliver it.
Well, we can come pick it up as well, we're here, but the other question is, we're trying to, move on to Brad and the building department. I guess, what is the
As soon as,
timing on all this?
I will just come out and look at it to make sure it is what you say it is, and I will sign off on your building permit.
Okay, got it.
Or
Okay.
your occupancy, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, we're trying to return this to rent. We have 2 units that we want to rent, and there are people waiting, so we would love to try to get that going if we can, so, thank you.
I will be there next week
All right,
to do that.
That works great. We do plan on bringing in, the grass and everything, having it all grow and so forth, so.
Okay, all right, unless there's anything further, would somebody like to make a motion to accept or ratify the enforcement order as written?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. The quickest enforcement order you've ever written, and
Yeah. Thanks for your cooperation.
yeah, thank you very
Greatly
much for doing all
appreciated.
that.
Yeah, again, sorry for tying up your time, we're just.
I hope
kinda
that you
looking
never
at
have
this.
another enforcement order with our
Yeah.
commission or any other conservation commission, and hopefully you've learned to ask questions before you do it. But if you do in the future, don't do the enforcement order.
Yeah, until the commission
you
votes
come
on
through
it,
the-
because they could decide something different than what I sent, because it was just a draft.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you very much for coming in. Thanks for your patience.
We'll see you.
All right, next order of business, approval of meeting minutes for September 7th and September 21st. Did anybody look through any of those?
Well, I did September 7th, because that's fine. I wasn't here for the September 21st.
Okay, and Pat, did you say the 21st?
I looked okay to me.
Okay, so you're both, it'll be a dual.
No, you have to do them separately, because I can't vote on the
That's right,
21st.
because you can't, okay, I'm sorry.
In fact, I don't know if you can
Oh.
approve the 21st, because I wasn't there, and that,
No, you can't
This is
approve because
perfect.
we don't have enough people. So
we can approve
were
the
you all here
7th.
on September 7th?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, we
you
were
can
here,
do
so we can do
September
September 7th.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Paul?
Paul Pat.
Opposed? September 7th, 2023 minutes are approved. We'll have to table September 21st, 2023 until we have a quorum that can vote. Okay, any other business not reasonably anticipated?
Only one small item. We're making our schedule for next year. Our first meeting in July falls on July 4th, which is a holiday. Town hall will be closed. Just letting the commission know that that meeting will not be rescheduled. It will be canceled because there is no room in the hearing room that week or the week after or the week prior that we could meet. So we'll be trying to get waivers from everybody to meet that one weekend after in July.
So it'll be July
18th. Yeah, that'll be our only meeting in July.
Okay. I'm busy that day.
So am I.
Just remember, don't accept any applications until, do the math for whatever date it is, but
Yeah, we'll have to have
early
everyone
in
sign
late June or early July, don't,
waivers, yeah.
be careful with that one.
By the time I walk out the door, I've already forgotten all this. so.
It's okay. We'll remind you.
All right, anything else? Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned at 6:43.